then Reinette Lombard, which is two of the authors, but I'm going to introduce Reinette to you, and she will then explain and introduce Jess to you and how she fits with Tippie. So, Reinette, thank you for being here today, and thank you for inspiring us and giving us hope. Sometimes we feel distressed and desperate for answers. We're happy to listen to you. Thanks, Reinette.
Thank you, Cornay. It's wonderful to be able to dedicate an entire webinar this afternoon to learn to read with Tippie. And I'm going to give you some background, but it is also a privilege to have Jess Cullen join me and co-host, co-present this English reading workshop with me this afternoon.
Thanks, Reinette. It's such a privilege, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm enjoying your comments about which teacher you will be, and I see there's a lot of parents who are teachers, so that's amazing. So we can unpack that.
Perfect. Cornay, can we kick off?
I think we are ready to roll. Yep, let's do this.
Fantastic. Let's get this up on the screen. So today we are going to delve in to learning to read the Tippie way. And we are specifically going to look at learning to read in English and why Tippie does the things that he does. There's always method to our madness, but there is also a lot of madness to us. As Jess said, it's wonderful to see that there is a lot of teachers that are also parents. And from both my side and Jess's side, that is so super, super true. We are not authors. We are teachers that write. And both of us have kids who've learned to read with Tippie. But just before we kick off, a little bit of background. I was a remedial therapist in private practice. And in 2011, I started getting loads and loads of referrals from schools and from parents who felt their grade 1 children were struggling to learn to read. And I assessed those learners in my private practice, and these kids all scored average or above average. There were no specific learning difficulties. These were neurotypical children, 6 years old, turning 7 in their grade 1 here. So eventually I had to question my career choices. I had to kind of think if I was a terrible therapist or why were these kids being referred and why didn't I find any specific challenges that these kids experienced. Eventually I realized it was what the kids were reading at school and at home. It was the books that were presented to these kids that they had to read. And it wasn't the children. So these readers were not decodable. The content was not relatable, and the characters, the kids couldn't identify with the characters in these books. I also realized then that the books didn't focus on typical child development and the way that children learn optimally. So in 2014, together with my mom, Josie Palmer, who was a teacher for many, many years, the first 8 Tippie leesboeke was published in Afrikaans. And from 2014 into 2015, Leer My Lees had continuous growth and development. And everybody often still remembers those early Leer my lees met Tippie boeke. But something changed and something happened, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. First of all, I want to say to you that we live in a rainbow nation, and when we had to decide on a character, we had to keep the many cultures, many languages, many groups and beliefs in South Africa in mind. And we didn't want to exclude anyone reading the Tippie series. We wanted it to be fantastical and magical, and therefore the characters are illustrated as animals, but they are typical children. They have big personalities and they have unique human qualities. And that makes it a mix of fantasy and fun, as well as characters that all South African children can relate to, because Tippie can be whatever children wants him to be. We also included many proudly South African adventures in these books, trees and birds and animals that we typically find in South Africa, whereas we don't really see moose as they would in the States. So it was being that proudly South African experiences, things that kids in South Africa still do. As you see from the images, the characters grow with children through the series. Tippie in the first book of series start out as toddlers, babies, having bottles and diapers and dummies. And then right there at the bottom where Tippie and Robin is dancing, they illustrated as these awkward teenage characters. In Afrikaans, we always say when boys are kind of at 11, 12, then they only ore, knieë, skouers en kniekoppe. So even through the illustrations, the characters grow alongside children. Tippie has no religion, has no culture. It's purely based on good manners and on the characters being decent human beings, saying please and thank you, experiencing adventures that includes all children. On the inclusivity, so imagination is the only limit. And therefore, Tippie can be whatever you need him to be. Jess has worked extensively in grade R. I'm going to ask her to quickly tell you a bit about herself, but also her experiences of the learn to read characters and Tippie in her classroom and how many of the kids experienced that.
Thanks so much, Reinette. It's such a privilege to be here, and I couldn't be more excited. Just to give you a bit of background, I have been teaching for about 15 plus years across various age groups, and I'm sure I speak to the converted, but teaching is really a calling. It is the most special profession, and it's that cliched, if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. And that's honestly how I feel. And when I first met Reinette, I asked her, I said, why the elephant? And she said exactly, what she said now, that it has no culture, no religion, it's relatable, it's South African, it's the South African context. And I remember we spoke about the way Tippie looked, and, is Tippie gray, is Tippie purple, is Tippie blue? And I feel that that's so open-ended in terms of the children. And I used to get my children to draw Tippie, and they absolutely loved it. Every single drawing was different. They all kind of perceived Tippie in a different way, which I think is so important. And that open-endedness of, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just kind of what you feel as being in the classroom. So in terms of Tippie, I feel that Tippie is such a has such a strong focus on decodable words and readers, and that is something that is so hugely successful when children are learning to read, to focus on those letters and the letter sounds, and those decodable readers essentially create success and confidence when children are reading, and that's what we want. I'm not only a teacher, but I'm also a parent as well. I've 2 girls. And I'll touch on my youngest, her learning journey, and how she used Tippie going forward with her reading journey.
So in 2019, Dr. Nandi Lessing-Venter was appointed as the new senior publisher at LAPA. From 2014 till the beginning of 2019, Tippie grew and expanded and continued to develop in Afrikaans. And with the appointment of Dr. Nandi, Tippie was registered as a trademark. And then Nandi phoned me in March 2019, and that telephone call changed absolutely everything. Nandi introduced herself to me, and she said to me, "Reinette, we want an English Tippie series." And I said to her, "What? Why? Are you a little bit crazy? Why would you, LAPA, lees Afrikaans, praat Afrikaans, why would you want to publish a Tippie series in English? There are so many international readers from international publishers. Why Tippie?" And Nandi said to me, "Because there is nothing like Tippie in English for South Africa or for South African children." So I said to Nandi, "No, I don't know. I will have to discuss this with my mom. But when would you like them to be published?" And Nandi said to me, "Well, as soon as possible. The first level of 10 books, we would like them to be published in 2019. And then every 6 months, we would like you to help us to publish another 10 books." So my mom and I chatted, and we thought really long and hard, like, is there a place for Tippie in English? Is it something we could believe in? Is it something that we could do to support learning to read in our South African classrooms and also in our South African homes? So we did loads and loads of research, and we found the Tippie way. What worked for Tippie in Afrikaans was that it programmed for success. And we wanted to replicate that in English. We wanted kids to enjoy learning to read. We wanted them to pick up their first decodable reader and be able to read it. Backed by the science of reading and how children optimally learn, we did learning to read the Tippie way. And I'm going to explain that to you in a little bit more detail in a bit. Method to our madness. But English is weird. Jess, do you agree with me? The English language is so complex.
It's so complicated, and the same rule doesn't always apply, which makes it even more confusing for our children. Yeah.
Yeah, English has more rules and more exceptions on those rules. So what that means is that the English language is made up of 26 letters, the alphabet, A to Z. But the combinations in which those letters are used gives us 46 different sounds or phonemes. But then there's 1,200 different combinations of those 26 letters. So English is not an opaque language. It's not as simple, learn your sounds and you'll be okay. You'll be able to decode, you'll be able to write, spell, and read. English is more a code that you need to learn, and understanding the speech to spelling code allows children to decode any word they see. So even before the 2021 Pearls was published, we realized in 2019 that so many children in South Africa are struggling to learn to read with comprehension, and a lot of children didn't like to read. They couldn't relate to the books that they had to read. And that was what guided everything we did for Learn to Read with Tippie. If you are wondering, we're not going into detail today. The Pearls stand for the Progress in International Reading Literacy Study, and the last one was done in 2021. That is South Africa, grade 4s. Only 81% of grade 4 children in this study could read with comprehension. Now everybody's going to say, yeah, but we have so many languages, so that must be where the fallout is. Absolutely not. In both Afrikaans and in English, our South African grade 4s and 6s scored way below the average. The international average sits at 500, and a 384 between the English grades means that our kids really, really did not do very, very well. But though that's what we know, that's what everyone now knows based on the Pearls study. But in 2019, we already knew this when we were asked to do Tippie in English. So what we said is 46 phonemes at the age of 6 in your grade 1 here, turning 7. Absolutely not. We need a different approach to English. And that is where Tippie's Learn to Read approach to English was founded, and what stands behind the English readers. On the 12th of April, we presented our idea, our different approach to LAPA publishers for Learn to Read. And we said that we would require children to only know their 26 letter sounds, a, b, k, d, f, g, to be able to read the level 1 books. And we also only wanted to use a small number of high frequency sight words. So the publisher agreed, and Learn to Read, therefore, is unique. But we also said to the publisher that we need to write new stories, we need new illustrations, and Tippie will not be translated from Afrikaans to English. Why not? Each language has its own grammatical structure, and therefore it was completely new stories focusing on developmental principles in consultation with loads of different speech therapists, occupational therapists, about how children naturally learn and progress. And that is where Tippie's approach to learning to read in English comes from, based on our experience and the practical application in classrooms. So, Jess, maybe talk us for level 1 and level 2, where you contributed 20 of the stories. This is all that's necessary to start learning to read at level 1.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Reinette. You know, the thing about the vowel sounds and the CVC words is that it is such an important part of them eventually, you know, decoding in words and in books. And I always say to parents who ask me, you know, in terms of, you know, their child is struggling to read or struggling, you know, to learn to read, paired reading at night is also so important to sit and find. I know things are busy and, you know, we are tired and we have stressful lives, but that paired reading every night has such a significant impact on children. And I used to read the Tippie books to my children at night to kind of help with their vocab and, you know, their sounds and all the above. So the sounds are so important, and I really, in my classroom, I would always use a multi-sensory approach. I'm really passionate about rotational group teaching, so I would incorporate the sounds into my rotations and really get the children familiar with the sounds, linking the sounds to the letters by doing, you know, kinesthetic activities. And so it was an amazing process to co-author with Reinette. And yeah, it's really special. And as you touched on, the authors are teachers. And that is what's so significant, that we understand the learning process. We understand children. We understand how they learn. And, you know, education is forever evolving, and we have to change the way that we teach all the time. Teachers are not the same that they were, you know, 40, 50 years ago, and we've had to evolve and had to change. And that is what is so special about Tippie.
Absolutely. And I think there you can see a very broad English publication overview. You know, we'll share the link for the complete Tippie catalog with you, where you can get lots more information. But I think this, to me, is one of the most important statements that I want you to take to heart today. In the foundation phase, children learn to read so that they can read to learn for the rest of their life. But the foundation phase is a 4-year process. Grade R, 1, 2, and 3. And we believe that children need to learn to read through a process throughout the foundation phase. And at the end of the foundation phase, at the end of grade 3, they need to be able to read with fluency, accuracy, comprehension, but it's skills that's developed through the phase and over time. And therefore, we approach English differently. We don't try to teach everything for English that is so complex in the grade 1 year. On this, grade 1s don't struggle to read in term 2. They are learning to read in grade 1. And I think that is also important for us to keep in mind. As Jess said, the paired reading, the exposure, but it is a process that kids go through. And fluency, accuracy, Reading speed doesn't come naturally. It's evolving, and Tippie can support you on that journey. Ignacio Estrada's words stands behind every single thing we do for Tippie. If a child can't learn the way we teach, we should teach the way they learn. And that is the guiding principle for everything we do in the Tippie publications. Jess, tell us a bit about how you made language, learning to read, concrete, because we know young kids learn optimally. You spoke a bit about your stations, but I know you had loads of other fun things in the classroom.
So in the classroom, my favorite thing is that if a child doesn't know that they're learning, then you've achieved by having fun. And games, fun activities, and movement are so important, especially in today's day. Children are in front of screens, in front of devices. They are, completely and utterly sedentary, not all, but mostly in the afternoons. So, and on weekends. So the most important thing is that children need to move to learn. And in my classroom, I've really incorporated that in the sense of doing rotational group teaching. And I've included sensory activities into that. So an example would be one station would be the children sounding out at by jumping into hula hoops and then writing the word. Then another station would be building the word with Play-Doh. And then another station would be drawing it in shaving cream on the window. Everybody always jokes because my classroom is always the messiest and the busiest, and there's just we write everywhere. We write with chalk on the walls, we write on the windows, and that obviously has its own benefits in itself in terms of writing on windows and developing those lovely muscles. So yeah, it is such an important part, and curious readers, there's a subscription for that, and there's lovely examples and lovely follow-up activities which will in turn be relevant to the children because the characters are familiar, and they honestly they really enjoy our rotations.
That is a phenomenal idea. I think what would your book's title be? The moving teacher.
Yeah,
Shake it.
the crazy moving messy teacher with chalk everywhere.
I love it. So, and I think those are lovely practical ideas. I know Jess also used the activity sets for level 1 and 2 with the flashcards and the alphabet cards and the Play-Doh mat. So there's lots of additional learning materials to make learning concrete, multisensorial, interactive. Tippie focuses on progressive development, on the building blocks and on a solid foundation, and then also always keeping the importance of prior knowledge in mind. Why is this necessary? Jess, you said we cannot teach the way we were taught 30, or it's longer than 30 years ago for me, way longer than 30, but we can't teach that way anymore, the way we were taught. Why? One, neurodiversity. When I specialized in autism 20 years ago, 1 in every 110 kids were neurodiverse. Today, it's 1 in every 10. Children are wired differently. You've mentioned screens. Absolutely. I just read a fascinating article that prolonged exposure to screens before the age of 2 leads to a rewiring of the brain. The synapses and stuff work in different ways. So we're dealing with different kids, but we're also dealing with children that are language poor. And this language poorness doesn't come from socioeconomics. It comes from parents that work full-time, and there's very little time and energy to spend with kids, or then parents who don't work. And then, and I'm sure you see this a lot in school, Jess, is the language of instruction is not the child's home language. Many children have an academic language. Excuse me, Jess, could you maybe tell us a bit more about how many kids are not being instructed in their or learning to read in their home language in your experience?
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. And some children are speaking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 languages, and that just adds to the importance of getting that English, across.
Thank you. So how do we think differently? How does Tippie do this? Eclectic and holistic. The outcomes all meet each other. No skills are taught in isolation. The multisensorial approach, as Jess has mentioned to you with the rotation stations, learning through doing, through active participation, having age-appropriate activities, and always consider developmental age versus chronological age. If a child is developmentally delayed, we start where the child is at. And because Tippie is developmentally structured, that would be learning letter sounds, the 26 letter sounds before we begin with Learn to Read Level 1, Book 1. Jess has touched on the combination approach, integrating books and technology. Technology in the form of screen time, but also functional screen time. This generation of kids don't really want to sit and read a book. But if we give them a book to read and then they can complete activities on a whiteboard or on an iPad that links up to what they've read, then we have engagement, we have interest. So very briefly, Tippie programs for success. We break down the outcomes. Why? Success leads to a positive learning attitude. We've gone back to the basics. But for us, the basics of a synthetic sound approach is to start with the 26 letter sounds. Also, there are no translations. Tippie is rewritten every single time. Why is it super easy? We've chatted about all those things, it being proudly South African, being progressive. Every level builds on the skills acquired in the previous level, but it's also sequential where each book builds on the skills acquired in the previous book. And then we use the outcomes as is in caps, but not as caps puts it into the curriculum. Why? 81% of children cannot read with comprehension at grade 4 level. So we've broken it down so that at the end of grade 3, we've achieved all those outcomes. Tippie uses levels and not grades. Again, why do we have a leveled approach? Because the building blocks for literacy is exactly the same, whether it is for home language or first additional language. And we use the same books, but our outcomes and our assessments differ. We are teachers, not authors. So everything that is done for Tippie is done by teachers for teachers. Because what should teachers spend their time doing, Jess? Teachers should
Drink lots of wine. No, I'm joking.
No, Jess, that's only when we're done here. Um, Teachers should teach. Teachers should spend their time, their energy, their all of them teaching children, not trying to find appropriate resources at 11 o'clock at night. So everything for Tippie is done to support teaching and learning. And when I'm talking about teachers, of course, that includes the moms and the grands that homeschool kids. Because while you are teaching your child, you are their teacher. There's continuous growth and development, and we're super excited about that. And then I think Tippie is very smart. SMART standing for specific. It's measurable, it's affordable, and it's relevant to South African kids. Tippie used to work in multiples of 10. Back in the day, in 2019, there were 10 books in a level. Subsequently, the series have grown, and we've added book 11 to 20. Why? So that we have 40 books suggested for a grade a year. Jess, why would you think 40 books a year?
Sorry, you broke up there. I didn't hear you, Reinette.
Why do you think there would be a need for 40 books per grade per year? I'm putting you on the spot now.
Oh my goodness. So I think, just getting back to the grades, the levels versus grades, I think that is so significant because my own daughter, my youngest daughter, was born quite prim, and she's had, a little bit of barrier to learning as she's grown up. She's now in grade 1, and she really struggled with reading and still struggles. But her confidence has grown so much because of her ability to decode words in the Tippie books. And that has been so significant in her learning journey. If children are confident, that creates independence. It creates that feeling of, I can do this, I can try. And that is so beneficial.
Absolutely. And I think that is extremely special. And the addition of books 11 to 20 gave 10 extra opportunities for children to practice through repetition the skills on that specific level. Because for some kids, it does take a little bit longer. And book 11 to 20 adds that opportunity to practice, reinforce, but also generalize the skills that were acquired in book 1 to 10.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
other reason,
That's exactly what I was leading to, is that, the extra 10 books have allowed exactly for that extra exposure, extra vocab, extra practice, that really creates confident readers. And now she's reading with expression, she's reading more fluent, and willing to try, and she has come a long way.
that is amazing. The 40 books per grade per year, the department's idea with it was there's 40 academic weeks in a year, so one reader per week. you and I know, teaching and working in schools, there's never 40 full academic weeks. Week 1 of term, everybody tries to settle in. And the last 2 weeks of term, teachers are puchai. But that is the general idea, that there are 40 readers per grade. Because our readers are not grade specific, you can always move forward and you can always move back. So in the catalogue, we have suggested grades for home language and for first additional language. Looking ahead, in January 2027, we will have grade R teacher guides. We're adding level RR, book 1 to 20, to the series. What's level RR? Level RR are purely for vocabulary, because our kids don't necessarily have the vocab for reasons that we've discussed, as well as the level R for reader, meet Tippie. In September 2027, teachers, this one is for you. We will have complete English teacher guides for grade 1 to 3, home language and first additional language, with all your assessment, incorporating all the outcomes for English on 40 weekly lesson plans. So that is super exciting. And then we will add anthologies for level R1, 2, and 3. So Tippie's journey, Tippie's story in English is still growing and developing. And it is lovely because it's so dynamic. Doing English the Tippie way, 26 letters sounds the starting point. Level R are emergent readers, where we have exposure to high frequency sight words with visual structure. And then level 1 to level 6 are decodable readers. And in each level, we progressively add in phonemes, so that at the end of level 6, children have those 46 phonemes that they learned in smaller attainable steps, bite sizes. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. And that then is the end of the learning to read, write, and spell in English as a process. Grade R to 3, if we follow through with Learn to Read with Tippie, we will have a solid foundation and no gaps. There won't be any building blocks that are missing. One of the things I recently realized is that in so many of our schools, every grade has their own HOD, and every grade decides what they are going to use. For us, we believe that in the foundation phase, we should look, or you should look, for a program and approach that has a follow-through, so that there are no gaps, and that from grade R onwards, kids learn consistently with something that meets specific criteria. Of course, we recommend Learn to Read with Tippie. So we're going to do a separate webinar for Tippie Learn Sounds. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but we do recommend Tippie Learn Sounds for grade 0, English home language. Learn to Read. 20 readers in a level, an eclectic and holistic approach to literacy, the language outcomes all link back to what the child read. We have repetition, reinforcement, and progression. And then the core readers that are suggested per grade for consolidation and accomplishment. The levels, Learn to Read Level R, focuses on emergent literacy, on vocabulary, on the high-frequency sight words with a visual color structure. Sight words in English serve a very, very specific purpose because those are those weird and wonderful words that occur frequently in text, but they're not easily decodable. So level R, great for emergent literacy. Interesting fact, only 35% of children starting grade 1 in South African classrooms own at least one book at home. And that is why so many kids also struggle because nobody's ever read to them. They've never had the opportunity to turn the pages in a book. Level R, those emergent skills, really, really great for those learners. Level 1, Jess, you wrote Level 1, book 11 to 20. Yeah, tell us about them.
Thanks, Reinette. Yeah, those are scary statistics, actually. It's crazy to think that that's what our children are coming into grade 1 with. So this writing process was so much fun. When I started writing them, I was actually away on holiday, and my older daughter, who was in grade 3 at the time, she got so enthusiastic about it and so excited that she actually helped me write quite a few. So it's not only from a teacher's perspective, it's also from a child's perspective. And specifically, Tippie Gets a Pet was one of her ones. And it's, so special to her, and it was such an amazing journey. And with regards to level 2, we introduced the floss rule. So they have double L, double S, and I think that really, really, and double F as well, obviously, and that really helps with spelling choices with children. And the process was amazing.
It was a lot of fun. Jess and I had loads of giggles along the process. I'm trying to think now. In one of them, Tippie's searching for his underpants or something.
Yes,
so these level 1 and 2 stories are written to be fun, to be a little bit silly. They are decodable, but they're also a little bit tongue-in-cheek sometimes. Why? Because our English kids are generally a lot less innocent, I think, than Afrikaans kids. So you'll see Tippie's face there. Tippie and Bud open the trunk. Bud, is this a prank? Yuck, yuck, yuck. And the kids giggle. Tippie plays a trick on Dad. So the English books are modern. They're very, very close to my heart, all of the English readers, even though I originally wasn't too sure that Tippie should speak English. And then there at the bottom, you will see the core reader, Hello Tippie, which is a thicker reader, a 64-pager that are used with level 1 and level 2 to consolidate skills. Level 3 and level 4 focuses on the digraphs, the blends, and in the catalog, you'll see the progression from level 2 to level 3 through to level 4. Level 4 focuses on the long vowels and those vowel combinations, but we always use visual structure in the text. Level 5, R-controlled vowels, consonant plus LE, and then level 6, the diphthongs, which are really tricky because they all sound the same, but they all spelled differently, and it's just something you kind of have to know. And big books that you can add for level 1, 2, and level R. There's activity sets. And that, in a nutshell, is learning to read with Tippie. There's a lot more we can delve into, but I hope that this has given you a better understanding of the teachers behind the Tippie series, but also why we do Tippie, learn to read with Tippie the way we do it. It is because we believe in it. It is because that is optimally the best way for children to learn to read in English as a process, a gradual journey in the foundation phase, rather than trying to rush in grade 1 to learn everything and to get to grade 4 and know nothing. And that's Tippie's philosophy for learning to read in English. Cornay, nou is ek sommer moeg gepraat, and I'm so used to speaking to Cornay in English, but over to you to tell us.
Thank you so much.
Questions.
Yeah, so thank you again. You always hear something different every time you listen to you speaking. So thank you, Jess. Thank you, Reinette. It was absolutely lovely, and there's a load of comments saying, love this, absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I have 2 questions quickly before we end this. There was a question asking, can we use Tippie if children have big gaps in grade 4?
Absolutely. Identify the gaps. And the best way to do that is if you have a level 6, a level 5, a level 4, a level 3, a level 2, and a level 1 book. If the child is in grade 4, start with the level 6 book, level 6 book 1. If children struggle with level 6 book 1, move back to level 5 book 1. If the child is still struggling, move back to level 4. And that way you can determine an informal observation of which of the building blocks is not consolidated, where the gaps are.
Yeah, fantastic. And then I have one more one that asks, can we start Tippie in grade R?
Yes, absolutely. For grade R, and keep an eye out on Tippie's Facebook page. Register on WhatsApp for the Tippie Learn Sounds. There's a special grade R workshop coming up in 3 weeks' time, I think.
Yep. I will post everything online and on WhatsApp. So
Yes.
keep your eyes on your tech screen time. Thank you so much. I think that kind of wraps it up. My English is also now dried up. Just quickly, for those of you who joined us later, the recording of the slides will be sent to you. Yep, I'll get to those in a second. And then for your SACE points, please fill in the form that you can get your hard-earned points. And you also get a certificate for attendance for today. And then before I do the prize giving, you will see I've just posted there in the chat line. We have another webinar coming up tomorrow. with DBE approved What Now. So that is bilingual. So we do half an hour English, half an hour Afrikaans, but the focus is for Afrikaans in the classroom, home language, and first additional language. So the link is there if you want to join us tomorrow, 4 o'clock, same time, same place. Different link though. So yeah, that's it. And then drum roll.
In Afrikaans, vir Afrikaans, but not in Afrikaans and English, but about Afrikaans in your classroom.
So have a fresh mind when you go. Right. So I think the lucky winner of the book prizes, Blake van Heerden. Um, so you can just WhatsApp me your delivery address, and then we'll make sure there is your prize. You get all three of the readers. We will send them to you ASAP. If we're quick tomorrow, you might have them early next week. So that's us for the day. Drive safe to your kitchen or your bathroom, wherever you're going from here. And yeah, let the questions come. We're always a WhatsApp away. And thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye.